My name is Daniel Lysak. I am the author of How to Become an Excellent Server. It's definitely the culmination of a lot of hard work, a lot of working, obviously, under your tutelage, and it's really been, incredible to see how, think of it like this, most classes at Georgetown, you put in some work, you have a final exam, and then that's pretty much it, and then you move on to the next topic. But this is just a continuous flow of everything from drafting to the interviews, to discussing it, to following up, to dealing with the publisher, to now finally having a finished product of which I can finally say I'm proud. It's just so incredible.
Yeah.
I think there's a stereotype of millennials that there, with some stereotypes, there are elements of truth. I think this is one of them, where the stereotype of millennials is that we're the generation that was brought up with participation trophies, and so the stereotype that baby boomers would have of that is they don't think they need to work hard, they don't think they need to be rigorous, etc., etc. I think the truth is somewhere in between of where millennials are actually at, but I definitely think that if millennials want to be excellent, they do need to, in the serving industry, they do need to think of it in that home way. Honestly, before I was kind of systematizing it, I was thinking in terms of my mom, when I was a kid, making food and coming and serving my brothers and I, and kind of the genuine care that was present there. And I think, so underlying whatever Machiavellian intentions a person may have with, trying to get the tips, got to get the big tips. And I think that's what's going to sell a lot of millennials. But I think underlying, if you really want to be excellent at this, is really, really, really caring about the excellence of the service, and then the tips will flow from that. So I think that shouldn't be undersold either. Well, I'll be honest, there was, of course, some initial skepticism. You could definitely hear it, throughout the room, like, is he serious? I thought this was an entrepreneurship class. What's going on? However, I would say that I was among more of the kind of early acceptors of it. I've, in the back of my mind, thought about, because my book was a product of all the systematic thinking that I've done about serving. Obviously I had a process in mind, but I also had all this kind of psychological theory in tandem with it. And so, definitely, once it dawned on me that this was a serious proposition, the class would be writing a book in a semester, I was definitely fully excited and ready to take it on. But yeah, definitely the initial, certainly came off as daunting, but couldn't be happier with how it turned out. Sure. Definitely I so value my background from my mother. I gave her a shout out in the foreword to the book. She's an Italian immigrant, and she food and just the Italian culture in general has been something so formative for me. I had mentioned to you she had her own catering business, and I was very active in that in my childhood, and certainly since then I've worked in different restaurants in all different roles, but with that background of cooking the food, preparing the food, delivering the food, all aspects of food service, I think that really gave me a full appreciation of what it means to truly make someone's night and really just make it special and make it feel like they're at home. As I mentioned, I've always been very kind of people enthusiastic, so I definitely knew that I wanted to do something along those lines, and I wanted to do something where I felt like I could give a unique insight, but also, the thing that you said in class that really stuck with me was that this should be something where you feel that you're an expert. So I played around with a couple different ideas. I considered something in marketing and a couple areas in which I'm certainly, interesting, but I didn't really feel as though at this stage I would be able to speak on it with the kind of authority that I really feel ultimately, made me feel very satisfied with this book in the end. The creation process, well, there was a lot of ambiguity to start with, because I was playing around with a couple different ideas, and I guess the creative breakthrough was once I was able to go all in, I'm doing the waiter book idea, then I was really able to get invested in that and just get really excited about it, discuss it. And also, I think the structure is very important, and that's not necessarily in alignment with my personality. I mean, with regard to doing something creative, if I'm doing a work project, I think there ought to be a great degree of structure. But when I'm doing something creative, I don't tend to think of it along those terms. But something as simple as putting together an outline, I mean, that outline became the book, with like one exception of like an appendix that I created at the end. But pretty much it was just, I mapped it out and then I populated a Word document. It was kind of that simple, so. Right, well, I would say that at first it was kind of just my natural way. I've always been kind of a natural people person. I'm very outgoing. I'm extremely, high energy and enthusiastic. And so when I did my first restaurant job, when I first walked in, it was really just natural the way in which I quickly befriended everyone. And the first part of the book, as you know, is all about interacting with one's coworkers and leveraging those interactions to your advantage. And similarly with interacting with customers, a lot of it did come naturally. But then as I started to think about it more and I discussed, with my peers, my fellow servers, things that worked, things that didn't, I just really, and informed by kind of my, background studying psychology, I really just started to think about it in a very systematic way. As you mentioned, it is seemingly simple, the customer-server interaction, but just taking something as simple as the line, you need to read the customer, or you need to be people smart. I think, most servers are aware of that fact, but they don't really have a nuanced understanding of what it really means to be reading the customer. How can you break that down? How can you categorize it? And that's what I try to do in the book, particularly in one of the chapters, one of the two that people will be reading, kind of the 3 new U's. I break down kind of the 3 main kinds of customers and how you can think about each of them. Obviously, there's an interaction between them. Obviously, you don't want to be overly simplistic, but I think that's a really great nuanced framework through which any server can be very successful. I'd have to say my favorite is probably the story of the ultimate water because of its simplicity, but also I think it cuts to the core of the idea of the book. The story was that there were a pretty interesting table of, I'd say like 10 pretty young 20-somethings, and they had all ordered an expensive, like $15 specialty drink, except for one person who very solemnly said, "No, I'll just have a water." Always being attentive and very observant, I had a feeling that maybe they were having a bad night, but I wanted to make sure that they did not feel like the odd man out, and everyone was sort of in jest teasing them, and not in a mean-spirited way. So what I did was I took that just a normal glass of water on which you normally put a lemon wedge, and I put not only a lemon wedge, but a lime wedge, an orange wedge, and a little umbrella, and a couple other little special garnishes. I think I even put in a tiny lizard or something like that. And you should have seen the guy's face. It really just lit up. No question that I had made his night. And the title of the book is How to Become an Excellent Server. The subtitle is Earn a Tip Above 20% Every Time. I made a very large tip from that table. But I think an important takeaway from the story is, yes, I made their night, but also I was observant enough to know that, this was the kind of table and the kind of demographic, and just, reading them where I knew that it would be appreciated. So probably one of my favorite stories. Yeah, no, my family was extremely excited. As soon as I got the cover email, I was like telling all my roommates, and I printed it out to see what it would look like in paper, and it definitely, there's something there when you get the cover for the first time. It's like, wow, like this is real. This is going to be a real book. Definitely was kind of that first, like, it's coming up. And here we are, and it's just a couple weeks away. So definitely trying to prepare as much as possible for that first book signing and beyond. There was a point where I had a ton of interviews that I had done. And side note, one of my favorite things about the class was that we did the peer-on-peer interviews in which I spoke out. I had a friend ask me questions that I pre-prepared, and then answered them kind of in my natural tone of voice, and then recorded that, and then played that back, and then used that to write the book. I thought that was one of many excellent ways in which the class kind of systematized writing the book, because the task of writing a book is very daunting if you think about it as just you as a mindless zombie in front of a Word document. But this really added a personal element to that. There was one point where I had like a ton of that, and I felt as though I needed to match it. But I think one of the breakthroughs that really helped me was realizing these interviews are for my benefit, not against me. And then just my process was, I did the interview, I wrote down pages and pages and pages of Word documents, and then just cutting that down, I think was one of the biggest challenges, but I think that definitely refined it and helped me write a book that I'm proud of. So I wouldn't trade it, that process.
That's great.
Yeah, launching a consulting business is perhaps even more of a daunting task. But I think what's great about the idea of this course, the thesis, the new degree, if you will, is that through launching a book, it's kind of like a test. When you try to put your systematic thinking into writing, you can really get a sense of if you really have some value to offer. And definitely, I think it was a successful test for me. I think that I was really able to elucidate my thinking on it, and I think that it translates perfectly into this restaurant consulting business. That initially, I'm going to be working with some smaller restaurants, and then expanding, and then who knows. But definitely, couldn't be more excited about that. Perhaps even more so than the book, because it'll be directly interacting with the target book customer, if you will. Yeah, it was a little bit of a turnaround. Initially, I had spoken with a couple of my friends about it, and they were like, "Come on, you're not really writing a book." And I'm like, "Yeah, it's going to be like around 200 pages. It's going to be like a real book." And they're like, "Yeah, very funny." But now, yeah, they know it's serious. They're among the people who said they want to be the first one to buy it, and I guaranteed I would sign them a copy. One of my friends wanted me to write a special note to him, and I promised that. So everyone's very supportive and very excited. I think it's definitely, a confidence booster to know that, I can go from just a blank Word document to having a real book, something that I'm putting out there. I guess there's a little bit of kind of kind of ambiguous excitement, because, as with anything, as with any art form, I have a relative, Mike, who's an incredible pianist, but he always says, and he sings as well, but he'll always say, whenever he puts something out, it's out to be judged. And I think, there's something somewhat scary about that, but at the same time, it's so exciting, and, I am proud of, what I wrote. So, definitely, the fact that I'm, putting something out there like that, I think is indicative of growth in and of itself. I don't know. I guess just the fact that there's going to be something out there that's attached to my name. I've always, my whole life I've strived to, even as I was younger, I wanted things that are attached to my name to be positive, to be things that I'm proud of. So I wouldn't say that there's a specific person, but just the public at large, just society. I want them to be proud of it. And as we discussed, there is an element of whimsy to it. So I think, as with anything that's meant for entertainment, I think they'll enjoy it. But I'm very happy that, at least it'll be out there. Well, the first thing I've tried to convey is certainly not hubris with that. I'm aware that I am a young man trying to convey thought processes that I've learned and that I've researched. But certainly the first thing that I did was look to those who have, say, 50 years of serving experience. And I reached out to those people, I discussed it with them. I reached out to the CEOs of big restaurant chain companies, and I received their input. They were very, very gracious in sharing their input. So definitely, to start, I wanted to make sure that I had that solid backing. With regard to actually, the outreach to millennials, I think that having a millennial do that, it couldn't be better. One concern that managers in restaurants that I've discussed this with have told me is that one of the biggest problems with serving is the generational gap between baby boomers and millennials, both in terms of communication, in terms of work style, just in terms of personality. So being able to, again, with kind of the whimsy in the book and with the consulting presentations that I'm doing, being able to convey that in a relatable way, I think is so valuable to any restaurant, particularly where there is that very large age gap, and therefore I think I'll be able to provide a lot of value to these restaurants. Definitely that every step of the way, you should completely go all in, do not have any regrets whatsoever, because every single step, it seems that in the preliminary steps, it's kind of nebulous. You're creating large spreadsheets and trying to narrow down what the best topic for you might be. But I guess just that every step of that process is so important. And although it may appear otherwise, at certain times, it is beneficial to you. And so, to anyone who may be taking your class in the future, I would say, it is so beneficial. It is intimidating that you're going to be writing a book. So to the future classmate in the new degree class, I would say, you're going to write 50 pages or so in a Word document-ish. Sounds like a lot, but when you're passionate about that topic, it is going to flow so quickly, and what's more, you're going to want to do it in your free time. If you think that there's no topic about which you can do that and would be happy to do that, then maybe it's not for you. But I think ultimately when you have that passion about the topic, or that level of expertise, or just whatever it might be, you need to have some driving force, but assuming that you do, every step of the process is worth it. Well, I definitely hope that as many waiters as possible have exposure to it, and waitresses. Servers is kind of the generalist term. I hope that as many servers as possible will have exposure to it. I hope to share it to whatever extent possible. My goal is not to make millions and millions of dollars selling copies. I just want it to, be out there, and I do want it to become popular, because I think that it really does encapsulate exactly what it takes to be successful as a server. And there are so many servers in America. National Food Service Day is coming up in May, so I hope to receive endorsements via that, so that the message will go out as much as possible throughout the country. And I hope that the consulting business will be a success. I'm definitely willing to put in the time, put in the work to make that happen, and to the best of my ability articulate why I think this is so valuable to millennials and to all servers in general. My name is Daniel Lysak. I am the author of How to Become an Excellent Server. The topic of the book is everything from interacting with one's coworkers to interacting with the customer, to specifically what you would say to a customer, as well as many whimsical anecdotes that explain how best to do that. I would say it's really anyone who wants to improve their skills serving, particularly those who are just getting started. I think it would really give a lot of insight to that. I think it's kind of a balance. That's how I think of it, because like serving, I want the book to be something where it has an element of whimsy. You're able, it's all about flexibility, I think. You're able to be the entertainer who is willing to freestyle rap into a pepper shaker, but at the same time, you're able to be the servant who has excellent diligent service, who has everything down to precision, who anticipates anything that the customer could possibly want. And I think that's actually perfectly encapsulated by the cover. It's a tray, it's a silver platter, so it's a stereotypical manservant play, here's your filet mignon, sir. But at the same time, it's a pile of money. And what's more whimsical than a big pile of money? So I think that having both sides of that coin, both the humor and the whimsy, along with the serious content, is what really makes it a strong book.